My name's Joe Abley. This is going to be a very quick talk, so anybody who's hungry can probably just hang on for a minute. So I'll gloss over some of these first slides. Most people here probably know what PGP is, and if you don't know what PGP is, then there isn't really enough time to tell you while I'm here. It's a general purpose tool for encrypting stuff and signing stuff. And the important point for the purpose of this brief presentation is that for PGP to be really useful, there needs to be a good way of accessing a trusted set of public keys for people that you're trying to send data to or for signatures that you're trying to verify. So verifying that keys that you have are accurate and can be trusted is an important part of PGP. Another sort of cornerstone of this presentation is the thing called the web of trust, which means you don't necessarily have to have verified personally another key in order to be able to trust it. You can possibly have trusted one key by some personal interaction with the owner of that key, and because they have done a similar exercise towards somebody else, you have a path through this web of trust to be able to trust that remote key, which might be owned by somebody that you've never met. So in effect, you're using somebody that you have met as a trusted introducer towards somebody else, which allows PGP to be much more useful, because it means you can use it towards destinations that you haven't actually personally verified. So this web of trust can be expanded by general key signing between two people anywhere, any PGP users. You don't need to do a PGP signing party. But quite often people get together in a little group in order to have what's called a PGP key signing party, usually without beer, not a very good party, in order to try and create a dense set of interconnections in this web of trust to make PGP generally more useful in some efficient way. So the general steps of a PGP key signing party, there's 4 steps. The first step is to verify fingerprints. So a fingerprint is a bit like an MD5 hash. In many cases it is an MD5 hash in some sense. So you have a copy of a public key fingerprint on a piece of paper. Somebody reads it out. The owner of that key verifies that what was read out corresponds to their personal trusted knowledge of what the fingerprint should be, and everybody else can make a note of the fact that the owner of the key confirmed that the fingerprint was accurate. So this is the first stage, fingerprint verification. The next important step, which is quite important and is quite often ignored by people who do this kind of thing without thinking, is to verify that the person who said, yes, that fingerprint is accurate, is actually the person whose name is on the key. So it's not just some random guy saying, yes, the fingerprint is accurate, even if you see him checking. If it's not his key, then you don't really have much to go on as far as trusting the key goes. So checking the identity of the person who verifies the key is also important. So common ways of doing this are checking government-issued photo ID, driver's licenses, passports, that kind of thing. Sometimes you can gain some sort of knowledge of the identity of the person by looking at other people that you know in the same room and how they react to them. You might say, if I know these 5 high-profile people in the room, and this other guy has got a big, important name that I recognize, and they all don't react badly when he says he is who he says he is, maybe I can infer something from that. So there are various ways of doing it. In the end of the day, it's up to the individual to choose a method that suits them. But photo ID is a common one. The next step is to take that information you have about the trustworthiness of a particular public key and record digitally the fact that that trust exists. And you do that by signing a public key with your private key. So in practice, the way you do this is you obtain each public key, you generate the fingerprint of the key you just downloaded, and you compare it with this piece of paper that you took away from the key signing party. And if they're the same, then you can probably be confident that the public key you pulled down is accurate, and then you can apply a signature to it. And the very last part is to take that signature and spread it out into the world so it can be used by other people. If you keep it to yourself, then you're not really enlarging anybody else's web of trust. If you send the key out with your signature on it, then other people can use that, and they can use any trust they might have of your key to allow them to trust other keys they haven't personally verified. So those are the 4 steps. This is a key signing party. Now the problems when the parties get big, fingerprint verification scales linearly. So if you have n people to read out keys, everybody compares them on their piece of paper at the same time. So that scales relatively in a controlled fashion. Identity verification is quite often quadratic, because quite often what happens is one person holds up their passport and shows it to everybody else in the room. So if you have 10 people in a party, then you have each person showing their ID to 9 different people, and there's a delay while each person looks at the ID. And as the party gets bigger and bigger, that problem gets bigger and bigger, and the party becomes more and more tedious. The exercise of signing the keys and verifying emails can happen after the key signing party, so that's not really a rate limiting step in making a key signing party efficient. So at NANOGs, we've had some other problems, which are not necessarily technical ones. The slot that we've usually had to have a key signing party in has been late on Monday night, which overlaps with the NSPsec BOF, which usually overruns because it's a good one, and also interrupts people's dinners, and half the people are drunk and stuff like that, so it's not very handy. Other problems we have is that people submit their public keys late, and they turn up saying, I just submitted it just now, but of course it's far too late for it to appear on the signature sheet, so that slows everything up. People show up and they expect to be able to read the trusted fingerprint off the piece of paper that they just got given by some random guy, which is not very useful. People don't actually know what PGP is, and they figure they just turn up and see if they can join in, which also doesn't work. And if we only have one key signing party, then there's only one chance for people to get all this stuff right, which tends to mean it's only the people who are already established users of PGP that get to play, which in effect, all those people have already signed each other's keys. The web of trust doesn't get any bigger. There's an efficient group key signing method, which was described by Len Sassaman, which attempts to make the hexadecimal part of the exercise a little bit less tedious, which involves making a big sheet of fingerprints, taking an MD5 hash of it, and then having everybody download their own copy and compare the hash. It doesn't actually address the identity verification problem at all, though, and that's the step that tends to take the most time. So here are my conclusions. Big key signing parties are tedious. Big tedious parties at NANOG are difficult. Having more parties would be better. So this is what we decided to try this time. Instead of having one big party on Monday night, which is only attended by drunk people or existing users of PGP, we have a much larger number of smaller parties, and we hold them throughout the 2 days, and you can pretty much attend any single party and get the full benefit of the whole thing. So if you happen to be busy in one break, it doesn't matter, you can go to the next one. If you happen to forget to submit your key on Sunday, it doesn't matter, you can do it on Monday and go to a party on Tuesday. So the general idea is we're trying to reduce this kind of thing here, which is a very tedious red diagram, into this, which is a very, very pleasant and calming blue diagram. So the orange and the brown dots are people who attend all the parties, and they act as introducers towards the rest of them. But somebody, for example, in the bottom left can trust a key from somebody else in a different party on the bottom right, because the signatures of those Mr. Orange and Mr. Brown allow that to happen. So what we're doing, we're having key signing parties in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the breaks and at lunch in the terminal room, which is just outside here behind the big PGP key signing sign. What I've been doing is printing out a daily set of fingerprint sheets. So there was one this morning, there'll be another one tomorrow. So if you want to participate, you basically show up, bring a pen, photo ID, and a trusted copy of your fingerprint, and you can come to any one of those parties and it should work. And we had the first one just in the break before this little session here. We had 7 people. It took about 10 minutes. So that was pretty good. And that's it. Any questions? Nope.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. I guess it's lunch.